In today's tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to digitize a cute Highland cow using one tool. Inner Circle members in your classroom, download the lesson files below this tutorial. YouTube viewers, check out the EL software link in the description. Let's get started. Step 1 is to open up your software, and here I am working on version 2061. The first thing that I'm going to do is load my backdrop, and you can do so by clicking the button up here that says backdrop. We're going to click load backdrop, and I'm going to select the design which I want to create. We're going to do this cute little Highland cow. But before we can start digitizing, we want to change some settings of the image. So I'm going to click on that image backdrop once again, and I'm going to press select backdrop so I can resize the image. Next, I'm going to right click on the image and I'm going to press properties. And you can see on the right, it says the width and the height in 10 inches. If you see it as millimeters, that's okay. If you go to the top, you can see on your toolbar there is a millimeters and metric to imperial, so you can toggle between millimeters and inches depending on what you want to work with, as well as you can press M on your keyboard to switch between millimeters and inches. Now I want this design to be 4 inches in width and height, so I'm going to press 4 inches and it will resize itself down to 4 inches. So this is perfect. This is the size that I want. And like always, I will be panning by holding spacebar, and I'm going to zoom in and out by scrolling on my mouse. Now up here we have the grid, but I don't think we need it right now, so I'm just going to disable that for now. And because we are working with a dark background on this image, I think one more setting that I'm going to change, I'm going to right click on the image once again to change the properties. And here we have the ability to bring down the opacity. So I'm just going to bring it to around 75%, just so it's a little bit easier for us to see what we're doing with the background. The next step is to select our digitizing tool. And for this design, all I'm going to use is the Classic Satin. This is one of my favorite tools combined with the Smart Join, because we can digitize really fast, create very complex shapes, and give the shape different densities and effects. So right here on the widget tool, I have my density, and you can see currently is at 0.4 millimeters, which is a standard density. We will play around with a little bit of this. Maybe we'll switch to 0.6 or even 1 millimeter in density. And on the right, we only have the line tool for a specific reason. Before we get started with digitizing, I am going to make one more change, and that is going to be to change my recipe. If you go all the way to the top and the left, besides where it says new design, it says change recipe. I'm going to click on that box, and I'm going to change my recipe from canvas to no recipe. And what this is going to do is it's going to remove all of the underlays to the shapes that we're going to create, because the design style which I'm going for doesn't require any underlays. So we're just going to click OK. Well, there's nothing to apply to, so that's fine, and we can now get started. Now, my one goal when creating this design is to connect everything as best as possible. That means that I don't want to be digitizing around here, and then I'm gonna jump somewhere over here, and then I'm gonna go jump somewhere over here, because that's gonna cause a lot of trims. As you can see right here, these scissors, they mean trimming. And if you don't see these settings right here, simply go into the 3 dots at the top left, and you should see view commands. Make sure that that's enabled, and you will see that there are scissors all over the place, because this design will be jumping a little bit too much. So we're gonna do our best to connect it all so we only have one trim by the end of this design. Can we do it? Let's find out. Okay, I'm just going to select everything by clicking select all or Control A, and I'm going to press delete on my keyboard to delete those examples that I just made. And I am going to change the color of my threads just so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see the details in which I'm creating. So maybe let's set this up in white. It might be easier since we're working with a black background. And I'm just going to zoom in right here and get started. Because we're working with a Classic Satin, we're gonna do a point. So I'm doing my first point and then a counterpoint. And this is creating an angle. So if I create my next point and then a counterpoint, I just created another angle. And then if I create a next point and then a counterpoint, these two right here will create an angle. So if I press enter, you can see that this stitch right here is going to the top. This one is kind of going horizontal, and this one is almost going once again to the bottom from top to bottom. So this is why I really like this tool, because we can change the angles of the shape really quickly. And this works the same way with curved shapes. So I'm going to left click on my mouse to create a point, and then I'm going to left click again to do a counterpoint. But now if I do a right click on my mouse, that will create a curved shape. And then I'm going to do right click again, right click, right click, right click, right click. And you don't have to do right click on both. So for example, here, I'm going to do a left click, and I'm going to do a right click, and I'm going to do a left click, and then I'm going to do a right click, left click, right click. And then for example, right click, left click. It really depends on the style of the shape in which you want to create. And remember that left click is a straight point and right click is a curve point, and then you press enter to create the shape. Now the last tip when creating point counterpoints, let's say I'm going to create I guess a snake right now, and I made a mistake and I placed a point somewhere where I didn't mean to. We don't have to delete the whole shape if we made a problem. All you want to do is press backspace, and the backspace will delete one point. So right here, for example, I'm going to press backspace, it deleted that one, then backspace again, next one, next one, next one, next one. So I'm back now here, and I can say, oh, I actually want to go this direction, and then I can press enter and finish my shape like that. So now that we know how the Classic Satin works, let's get started with design. And I'm going to zoom in somewhere around this area. So I'm going to press left click to create my point, and then I'm going to press left click again to do my counterpoint. Now you can see that as I'm creating, there is a prompt that's saying the length. So right now it is 2.7 millimeters in length. And then right now it's saying the width 1.2 millimeters. The one thing that I'm constantly looking out for when I'm creating a design is to ensure that the width, it says at least 1 millimeter. You can go a little bit below that if you really have to, but to create really nice designs, you want to stick to 1 millimeter. So let me try that again. Let's do 1.1 millimeters, and then I'm going to right click to create a curve, right click and right click to create a curve. And you can see that right here, I'm at 2.1 millimeters, and then I can press enter and I created that shape. Next, let's create this one right here. So left click to do my point, and then left click to do my counterpoint at 2.4 millimeters, then right click to do a curve shape at 1.4 millimeters, right click, right click, right click, and then left click at 1.9 millimeters in length. And then I'm going to press enter, and you can see that I created my second shape. Now, before I move forward, something very important happened as I created that second shape. We have this amazing feature in this software called Smart Join, which means that when you create a shape like so, there is a start and a stop to the shape. So right here, this is where the stitch will start stitching, and this is where it will stop. When I create a second shape using Smart Join that connects to this one, you will see that the stop will change. So now that I've created that second one, utilizing the tool, you can see that it starts here, but now it ended there. And that is the awesome thing about Smart Join, is that it will automatically detect where the next shape is going to stop, so that it avoids a lot of jump stitches and trims and all of those things that make our embroidery a little bit slower. But don't worry so much about it, because by default we already have that enabled. And by the way, on your keyboard, if you want to quickly access the Classic Satin, just press 2 on your keyboard and you can see that the widget tool will automatically select it. So that's perfect. I'm now going to go point, counterpoint, ensuring that I'm at least doing 1 millimeter point, counterpoint, and press enter. Now there was a trim up here, but because we have Smart Join, it detected that we created the next shape over here. So it said, okay, I'm going to make sure that I connect all of it. So that's really awesome. It is going to save us a lot of time. Next, I'm going to do point, counterpoint, right click, right click, right click, right click, because I'm making curves. And again, this shape is just a little bit bigger, so I don't really have to think about the 1 millimeter rule. That is around 1.6 millimeters in width. So I'm going to press enter and finish that shape. And then I have another tiny one right here. So I'm going to press left click, then right click, right click, right click, point, counterpoint, and so on. and press enter. Again, it decided to connect it the best it could. Next, let's create this shape right here, and you can see that I'm using the power of this tool to create the angles in which I want the stitches to go. I don't just want them to go straight or even one angle. I want them to curve. I want them to have the feel of hair, which this Highland cow has. So here I'm just replicating that as best as I can. And because I want to connect everything, I'm going to create this right hair first, ensuring that I'm doing 1 millimeter, 1.7, perfect. And then I'm just going to do this other one over here. Perfect. And I know this one's super tiny, but we can create it too. Perfect. It's okay if we overlap things. And honestly, if I see that some hairs are just a little bit too small, I won't even create them because my goal is to create everything in at least 1 millimeter. Now here, for example, I have another little hair, so I'm just gonna create it from up here, and it doesn't matter that I started up there because the program is going to still find the closest join and connect it right there. Perfect. So I'm overlapping a little bit right here, and I'm just doing right click to create those shapes. Then I'm going to do left click to create my first point and counterpoint. And then I do right click to start creating those curves. And you can see that just by doing point counterpoint, we are creating a lot of stitches that as soon as we zoom out, they're going to turn into a really awesome design. And I'm going to start all the way down here. Again, Smart Join is taking care of business, so we don't really have to think about where we start and where we stop anymore because it automatically connects it all. If you have been a traditional digitizer, then you know how much work it is to manually have to change that, but now we no longer have to do so. We are living in the future when it comes to digitizing, guys. So here, I'm just exaggerating the shapes. I'm creating them a little bit bigger. You can see I'm going from very thin to thicker just to try to imitate this hair right here. And again, ensuring that I am doing at least 1 millimeter. So there we go, point, counterpoint, and press enter on my keyboard. Now right here, you can see there's barely a super thin strand of hair, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to start my next point right here. Again, just ensuring that I'm doing 1 millimeter minimum, and I'm going to exaggerate this strand. Because why not? This is such a creative design that we might as well have some fun with it and enjoy creating an awesome piece like so. Perfect. And now I'm going to create this next one. I'm just going to ignore some of those smaller hairs because I think they're a little too tiny, and ultimately the whole design is what's going to create a very nice finished look to it. And here I am going to finish around right there. Perfect. Now you can see we created the whole bottom section and it's looking kind of funny. Still, I mean, we have so much more to go, so it definitely doesn't look finished at all. But here we have kind of like the underside, maybe like the goatee, and we have two options. We can either go left and right, so point counterpoint like this, which is a very valid option depending on the style that you want to go for. But something I want to try is to now mess around with the density. Going on my widget tool, I'm going to switch for my density from 0.4 millimeters all the way to 1 millimeter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create with point counterpoint almost a shape like this. So you can see it looks like that, and the stitches are just a little bit more spread out. Now let's go back to 0.4, and I'm going to create this little shape right here, like so. You can see that everything is still connecting. Now, sometimes you may see some threads being or going underneath, and that's because of the way it's trying to connect. So let's see if we can fix this right now. If you press Q on your keyboard, it will bring up the path edit, and you can find a path edit up here on your toolbar that says path edit. So now that I've selected that tool, I'm going to click on the shape, and you can see that the start actually ended up being here. So maybe if we change it to around there, it might be a little bit better. But now you see that there is a trim because the shape that we created before is a little bit too far away from this next start. So we just have to go back to our last shape and also modify the end. So now you see there is no more scissors and we can connect everything without needing to trim. So those are just some couple of tips and tricks that you can do. You see there are no more stitches underneath this and it still looks very nice. It's all connected and ready to go. Perfect. So again, I'm going to press 2 on my keyboard to go back to my classic satin, and I'm gonna go back to 0.4 millimeters, and now I can keep going, creating the rest of the beard or the hair. Guys, I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to cows, so please enlighten me. I just find these cows to be super duper adorable. So here I'm just doing point, counterpoint. I almost forgot, but one more thing, as we're starting to create more of complex shapes, you might notice, and this is a little bit hard to see, so I'm just going to hide my backdrop for now. You will notice from time to time that there is a red dot that appears under your cursor. And that red dot is the snap to anchors. Now with snap to anchors, you can add on to that shape, but because I don't want to do that for this tutorial, all I'm going to do is disable it. And it's up here on my toolbars, just disable the snap to anchor. Perfect. Let's go back to view backdrop. And now you can see I don't get that red dot anymore. So let's keep going. I'm going to exaggerate this little shape right here by doing point counterpoint, just so that I can connect to these hairs over here. We might have to invent a couple of hair strands here and there, but that is so worth it because I don't want this design to trim at all. So now, these are a little bit darker on the image. We can either do 1 millimeters, but I think I want to try 0.6 millimeters. So here I'm just going to create my point counterpoint and I'm just going to invent a couple of threads just so that I can keep connecting everything, because the last thing I want to do is have to trim this design. So here I go. I'm just gonna create a couple of these and start and stop. Perfect. Let's add a couple of these like so, just adding a few more stitches. It's okay because these details are so small, but ultimately it will add to the time saving of the embroidery and you will still keep that quality of stitch design. So here we go. I'm going left and right, point, counterpoint, just creating a couple of these stitches right here. I'm gonna go down this way. And here I can see that I'm almost locking myself out. So I'm even going to use this hair strand right here to continue connecting. I'm going to almost exaggerate this one right here. You can see there's a little hair right there. That's fine. And let's go all the way down here, making sure we're connecting everything. And you can see right here, the stitches are still connecting all of them. There is still no scissors, and if we zoom out, there's only one scissor so far, which is this one right here. So one trim so far. Perfect. Now I'm just gonna keep going by creating these stitches right here, point counterpoint, and I'm zooming in and out every now and then so that I can make sure that I'm going the right way, that I don't lock myself out. Now, thankfully, because this design is a lot of hair, it's a little bit easier for us to deal with to ensure that we don't lock ourselves out. So it's perfect for practice, and you want to make sure to continue practicing your classic satin skills. Here we go, point counterpoint. Oh, I think I might have messed up. So here I did make a bit of a mistake. I think I forgot to add one more point. So all I'm going to do on my keyboard is press Ctrl Z or undo, and you can find undo up here. And I'm just going to recreate that shape very quickly one more time. And you know what? Let's finish it all the way down here. That's even better. Perfect. Let's keep going this way. I know I'm not touching up every single hair, but honestly, I'm okay with that because, again, I always feel like I'm just kind of doing an artistic version as opposed to having everything so meticulous. It's not like it's a logo, so I think we are okay. And here we go down this way. You know what? I think I'm going to invent another hair right here just so that I can connect it to this one. Oh boy, I am changing the design. What do you think, guys? Should we do a challenge where we don't change designs at all? I think it still looks pretty awesome that way. And you know what? We are going to ignore those hairs over there and then just go all the way up here like so. Let's finish up around here. Again, making sure I connect everything, which thank you so much to the program. You're taking charge of the start and stop, which is saving me so much time right now. I remember when I had to change them manually, and I do not miss those days. Now here it looks like we're going back to a bit of a more solid color. Here we have more shadows, but we'll take care of those in a second. So you know what? I'm just going to switch back to 0.4. The difference won't be that crazy because between 0.4 and 0.6, I mean, that's just 2. So it really won't be that noticeable. But as we get closer to the design or we look at it from further away, we might get some pretty interesting results. So here I'm just getting left, right, left, making sure that I'm doing at least 1 millimeter like always, and just getting a little bit creative with all the points that I see. So here I do 1, 2, point, counterpoint. Here we go, point, counterpoint, and almost give it that hair strand look. If you've ever done any sort of art that requires hair, you know that artists like to put all the hairs in sort of like a section. So that's almost what I'm imagining myself doing with this, creating the sections of the hair. Here we go, just doing the small little pieces before moving forward to the big pieces like so. And now this is a big piece, so I can finish that all at once. And you'll notice that as you start doing point, counterpoint, left, right, enter, and so on and so forth, you're gonna get pretty quick at this because this is a very repetitive process and it just feels very rewarding when you get it right. You get in the flow of creating this stitch style. So here we go, pressing enter right there. And now I'm just gonna do a couple of these like so, left, right. I don't have to put in so many points because again, when we actually embroider this, it won't be as obvious. That's one of the biggest issues with digitizers is that we are so picky because we're so zoomed in so we can see everything. But in reality, when you zoom out, you won't really notice that so much. Here I can see there are a couple of shadows. So once again, I'm gonna switch back to 0.6. And I'm just going to exaggerate a couple of these hairs so that I can connect all of them. Maybe even turn them just into 3 hairs and exaggerate them a little bit. Ooh, what should we do here? I feel like what I'm gonna do, let's see. We can create the big one. No, let's create the small one first. And I'm going to do it in 0.6. So I'm doing this one right here. Then I'm going to create this one right here and just exaggerate the size because I want it to look a little bit more obvious. Then let's do one more. And you know what? Let's do one more right here, pressing enter. And now I'm going to switch back to 0.4 and I'm going to do this whole thing. So let's start over here on this end, go all the way around, point, counterpoint. Here I'm just doing right click to create these curves. And I'm going to exaggerate this. Why? Because I want it to be 1 millimeter at least. So that's 1, 1.8, and 1.8. Perfect. That looks pretty awesome. I like that. Let's keep going. And you can see that there is a trim right down there. But as soon as I continue creating stitches over here, the program says, oh, you actually wanted to go back up there. You didn't want to finish down here. No problem. Let's take care of that. So that's awesome. Whoops. I almost went to 0.3. So here we go. We're just going to do this part of the hair. And you can see how fast you can really get. I'm doing point, counterpoint really fast to create the stitch style, this little effect. And now I'm going to switch back to 0.4. Do a couple of these hairs. It's so cute. The little sleepy hairs of the Highland cow. All right. Now, I've never seen one in real life, but I honestly would love to because I think these are the cutest cows ever. Okay, and bring them over here. Let's create this hair strand right here. Now, the reason that I'm going, instead of just continuing from over here or from this hair strands down this way is because I imagine myself in a 3D view of this cow, and I think that these hairs would normally be on the back of its head. So we're just trying to replicate that. So we were gonna put most of these, the ones that we're creating now, on top of those stitches. It won't be so obvious, but maybe as a digitizer, I just prefer to know that it is accurate when it comes to 3D style. Who knows, guys? Let's keep going. Doing this style is also really good practice for when you want to do your own customized outlines. And what I'm talking about is for when you see some cartoon designs that you want to create. If you see that some cartoons, depending on the style that they have, some have really, really crazy outlines that end up being very thin and end up being very thick. And if you were to use a steel tool, like how we used in the last tutorial, you only get really one width, whereas with this tool, you really do get the ability to switch between widths, switch between the outlines and everything really quickly. So here I'm just gonna do it like this, and I'm just gonna kind of overlap them a little bit. I don't really know exactly what I just did there, but that's the part that I love about digitizing, is that a lot of this is just experimentation. So even if you guys are not getting this design perfect right away, don't worry, because nothing is perfect in digitizing. You can always improve it. So just remember to have fun and keep practicing above all else. Oh, that's a little cute little hair strand. Let's keep going with the rest. I'm just going to exaggerate this one, and I'm going to go back here and just try to finish this little hair right here. Perfect. And let's take care of this one too. Oh, and we're gonna move to the ear, which is adorable. So you know what? For this, I do want to start up here. And I'm going to exaggerate my stitches because I almost want it to look like hair. So I was supposed to go in up, down, like that. That doesn't look that cool, so I'm going to angle my stitches. Did you know you could angle your stitches? Because we're going to do that right now. I'm going to do one that way, almost at a 45-degree angle, and a 45-degree angle. That will be at least 1 millimeter for sure, and it's going to give this really cool angled effect so that we get this hairstyle. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just angling my stitches like so. And here we go. Let's keep going. Just making all of these hairs super, super cute. Let's keep going. We are almost done with this area. And I'm going to go there. Now, I'm kind of cheating right here because I am going to use the power of connection, because when I create this next strand right here, you can see that it's stitched on top of the other one. Now, the reason I was okay with doing that is because this is such a thin little thread that when I zoom out, it won't really matter so much. So again, don't beat yourself up, guys. If you may have cornered yourself somewhere in a design, that's okay, because as long as you find your way back, remember that also trimming or avoiding trimming and connecting your designs is super, super important so that your design comes out really good without any issues. So here we go. I'm just going to exaggerate this little eye part because I want it to look really good. And these two shapes, I'm just going to turn them into one as opposed to two. Here we go. Let's do this little hair by going up and down, up and down. Perfect. That is kind of cool. And here I'm just going to go back to the other style like so. Perfect. Let's keep going here. Oh, this is so cute. I love the nose. Okay, I am going to finish up on the hair strands. I think I'm getting a little bit too excited wanting to go down to this area. But like I said, the nose would be all the way at the front, so we might as well finish up all the hair that's up here so we can finish up on the nose. So here we go. Let's keep going to create these hair strands. And at this point, you can almost see that I'm kind of locking myself in when I do my shapes. So I'm going to be just a little bit more careful to not let that happen. All right. And I'm going to utilize this little part right here to close up that gap. Perfect. Let's keep going out this way now. Awesome. And let's go this way. Let's create the super hair strand. And Notice how I've kept watch on this little bar the whole time, letting me know that I'm doing at least 2 millimeters, 1 millimeter, 2.4, 2.3 millimeters. I am not letting the shape go under 1 millimeter at all, because I want to make sure that this design stitches out beautifully with no errors. So here we go. Let's keep going and create these tiny little ones over here, like so. And I'm just going to exaggerate these. Cute. Now here, I'm going to switch it now back to 0.6 and just create a couple of these. Again, it's so tiny, so I'm not really too worried about making sure it's perfect. I kind of just want to cover more of the area of these instead. And here, let's just, again, I'm going to make sure that these two become one. Here, 1.5, 1.3, perfect. And what are we going to do here? Again, exaggerate this a little bit because I want to make sure I do at least 1 millimeter. Here we go, 2.7, perfect. And here I can just keep going with the hair strands like so. We'll take care of that at the end. So I think this is where we're going to finish right here, because the way in which I'm seeing we're mapping out the design, it's more than likely that we will finish in that area, which is awesome. But if you finish somewhere else, that's no problem as well, because again, all about experimentation. Here we go. I'm gonna go finish somewhere around here. Let's then keep going around this area, just doing point counterpoint the whole time. And now let's finish up this area right. Ooh, I guess we're going all the way down to this hair strand. Perfect. And down here. I don't want to forget that I'm still at 0.6 density because I don't want to have to change it later. So I'm just going to go back to 0.4. There we go. And I guess I'll bring it all the way down here. And for this one, same thing. I'll just exaggerate a little bit more. Perfect. Now here, I'm just going to exaggerate this area too to make the little top of the hairs. And this one. And again, I'm doing an italicized. It's not italicized, but it is a diagonal looking satin. There we go. Looks awesome. Now the next area, let's take care of this beautiful nose. So all I'm gonna do is point counterpoint, and here I'm going to finish the point counterpoint around there. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to switch back to my 1 millimeter, and I'm going to just create this little shape like so. I just did point counterpoint from one end to another. Perfect. And then I'm going to switch back to my 4 millimeter, and now I can keep going back over here on this side. We can just keep going until about here. And again, I'm just taking care of a couple of these hairs, trying to ensure that I'm connecting all of it. Very, very nice. Now, before I finish up here on this darker area, I'm going to switch back to my 1 millimeter, and I'm gonna add a bit of a shadowy effect. So you can see I just made this in 1 millimeter, and now I'm going to switch back to my 0.4, and I'm going to overlap it. That's the beauty, guys. You don't have to just play with one density. You can play with a couple of them, start adding on effects. The more comfortable you get with this design and with this tool, you can start, modifying it to whatever you'd like. So here, let's add this other shape. And now, can I make it into two more? I think I will. One shape and then one last shape right here. Perfect. And did we say that we were gonna finish up on this side? Perfect. So I'm going to switch back to 0.6 millimeters. And I'm going to go all the way down here to around this area of the design. Next, let's go over here and finish up this area. And I think we have the last shape exaggerated a little bit. And now we are done. So let's click 1-to-1. Oh, that's so cute. Let's first of all remove the backdrop, and you do that by clicking the image that you used to import the backdrop. So I'm going to click view. Now I'm going to select everything by clicking Control A, or you can also click select all right here besides your select tool, and I'm going to switch this to a red. Oh my goodness, that is so cute. Look at that little cow. Now, as you've noticed with this design, there's only one trim. And to make it even cooler, let's change the backdrop. So to change the backdrop, you do Control B. This is going to allow me to change the background of my design. So I'm going to change that to black. Makes it a little bit easier to see the cow. And I'm going to do Shift R to view the redraw of this design. So let's make sure this is around ×4 and I'm going to press play. Here we go. Everything is connecting. You can see the different densities that we used on this design so far. Oh my goodness, it's all connecting and we have one trim right here. So you can start embroidering this design, leave your machine, come back to a finished product because you have no threads to trim. Now the last thing we have to do is save this design. Very, very important. And to do so, we're just gonna go up here and click Save As. Now I'm gonna go to my desktop and I'm going to save this as my Highland cow. And the first thing that we want to do is save it as a JDX because this is the file that we can go back to and modify after if we want to. So I'm clicking save and now I'm just going to save it one more time, but I'm going to save it as a DST because that is the Tajima format that I'm going to embroider this on. So I'm just going to save it under the same folder as the DST. You can save it as a PES file, a JEF file, an HUS, depending on the machine that you have. But for me, it's Tajima. So now that I click save, I'm going to go embroider this, guys, and I'll come back to you with the result. And here's the final result of this Highland cow. It is so cute and I can totally see this being put on a backpack. My favorite part of this embroidery design is that it didn't trim until the end. Inner Circle members, don't forget to download your lesson files below. Not a member yet? Join the Inner Circle and get access to exclusive bonuses, hands-on training, and everything you need to master embroidery digitizing. Click the link in the description to get started. Want to keep learning? Check out these tutorials next and take your embroidery skills even further.